Hello everyone, my name's Andy today, and I am coming to you today from my own personal early medieval armory here to talk to you a little bit about my Patreon project on Vikings and racism. To start off with, I think we're going to need some definitions. And the reason for that is, in the modern world, we use the term race very casually, as if we all know exactly what it refers to and what it's all about. And I have talked to several friends to kind of get their views of what exactly is race. And a few of them have said it's a cultural definition. A couple have said that's a kind of a social definition, which is based on differences in the appearance of human beings. But a lot have indicated that they think it's a biological definition, which separates humans based on physical factors such as skin color and the hair types and so forth. And I think this is a pretty common error. The assumption that biology is actually where race belongs. And I want to address that because that is entirely incorrect. But there's good reason for why people think that is the case. And that is because it was a part of biology for centuries, starting in the 1700s into the 1800s and even into the 1900s. It wasn't uncommon for biologists to think that race was a valid way of differentiating different peoples. But it is not considered that any longer. So the first guy who used the term race to describe human beings was, of course, a European. And he lived from about 1620 to 1688. His name was François Bernier. He was a Frenchman. And he was a physician who used his medical skills as a way of traveling the world. And he was very well traveled. He went from France, he traveled greatly through Europe, he went through the Middle East, he spent many years in India. He definitely sailed in the Indian Ocean, and he tried to enter Africa, but at the time there was a civil war in Ethiopia, and he was unable to gain access. Francois, when he completed his journeys, wrote a book, and this book was called Nouvelle division de la terre par les différentes espèces ou races qui l'habitent, a new division of the earth by the different species or races that inhabit it. And in this book, he broke humans into different racial groups. And as far as I can tell, in the modern world, this is the first time this happened. I should note that there are discussions of proto-racism in the classical world, the world of the Greeks and Romans from, say, 600 BC to 400 AD. I'm not going to deal with that because the standards and criteria that the Greeks and Romans used were alien to what we use today, and their way of thinking about race was very different. So we're going to stick with the modern definition of race. Now, François Bernier had 4 races that he had come up with, and I think these are going to be pretty surprising divisions to y'all, and I'd like to share them. The first group he had was the Eurasians. The Eurasians, in François Bernier's mind, were most of Europe, and we'll get to that in a bit, a great deal of Southwest Asia, particularly India, and he also saw the Middle East and Northern Africa as being part of this group. So he included Moroccans and Algerians in with French and Germans, as well as the inhabitants of India. I think that's a really different way of looking at the world than we do today. He also saw Sub-Saharan Africans. Remember, this doesn't include Egyptians, Moroccans, or Libyans. These are the people in deeper Africa towards the south. He saw them as a distinct race. What he noted about this race, and I should be clear, it's not certain that he ever even spoke to any Sub-Saharan Africans, but what he thought of this race, he recorded them as being very beautiful. This may have been because the people he recorded seeing were naked Sub-Saharan women at a slave market on an island off the coast of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. So we don't even have a clear picture of whether or not he saw men as well. The next group he had were the white Orientals. Who were those? Well, obviously, they were the Chinese and the Japanese. I don't think that's so obvious to us. He distinctly separated Northern Asia from Southern Asia racially. The final race he had in his 4 categories may surprise you. The Laps. Who are the Laps? The Laps are the people we today call the Sami. They are the people who are indigenous to northern Norway, northern Sweden, northern Finland, and northern Russia. We know them for herding reindeer and for their extremely beautiful cultural costumes that they use. I shouldn't say costumes, their cultural garb, which they wear to things like weddings and funerals and important ceremonies for their people. Now, this is definitely a surprise. The Laps, or the Sami as we refer to them today, are a white-skinned people. Often they will have beautiful blonde or black hair, and I don't think any modern person would consider them distinct race from any other European group today. Now, here's a trivia question for you. Who do you think of these 4 groups, which of those was naturally inferior, naturally predisposed towards criminal behavior, untrustworthy? Which group was this a biological characteristic of? Of course, the Sami, the Laps. He didn't see a problem with Sub-Saharan Africans, nor did he have a problem with Eurasians or white Orientals. It was those tricky Sami that he had such an issue with. In the next video, we'll have a look at another scientist, or proto-scientist, or however you want to view them, who had a tremendous impact on the modern thinking on race. But for now, I'm going to leave you there. I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to my videos. If you think this is a project worth exploring and supporting, I would ask you to look at my Patreon page and perhaps consider pledging to it. Other than that, I'm going to wish you a really good day. Thank you.